are at George Cal Motor Company, the new George Cal Motor Company. We're out on the highway, John G. We've talked a lot about before here on Remember When about we've got a nice dealership. We had a big celebration. Man, things are going on here.
It really is, and we want to thank all our local customers who continue to come by and see us and visit with us and buy from us. But it's really been good watching all these people come down the freeway, turn in, who had never seen us before because we were off the beaten path.
Absolutely.
And people from Jonesboro, people from Blytheville, people from Memphis, Little Rock. We're catching people that are going from Little Rock to Jonesboro, Jonesboro to Little Rock to look at cars at big city dealerships, seeing us here, stopping in, saying, gosh, that's a better deal than we were told we'd get at Little Rock. So it's been really, really good. The phenomenal thing about it is the customer waiting area, how nice it is. And as I told you before, we really miss the potholes and the water and all that.
Beautiful facility.
It really is. It's state of the art. And we've had people come in and say, God, this rivals anything in Memphis or Little Rock.
It does.
And it really does. It's really a nice facility. And if you hadn't been out here to see it, come see us. Let us show you around, show you what we're made of, and show you what we can do for you in the way of cars or service.
Hey, John, we got some specials that we want to show you right now, some units that we just, we've got them marked down. We're ready to sell these things. We've got some units. Tell us about what we've got.
General Motors has made this as about as complicated as it could be. Every month you get to tag certain vehicles.
Okay.
When you sell some of the tag ones, you qualify for more.
Okay, got you.
But here's the rub. You have to pick out the ones you think you're going to sell.
Okay.
Then you tag them.
Okay.
Wouldn't it be nice if they said, you've got 20 of them you can tag, here's 20 tags, when David Black comes in and wants to buy that one, tag it.
Yes.
That ain't the way it works. We have to be soothsayers, and we have to be
Yes,
able to read
you got to know, don't you?
You got to know.
You got to know.
And we've sold a bunch of trucks and SUVs, which is really our market, and we all know that.
Sure.
But we picked out some that we thought, well, let's try this. So we tagged these.
Okay.
There are 5 of them, but I think Kevin may already have one of them sold. So I just want to talk real briefly about these that we have tagged.
Absolutely.
Kind
these
of
are tagged. Special.
Well,
That's special.
These are tagged.
Tagged.
And so, and if you get a chance after you watch the show, you want to drive around, they may not be here, they probably won't. But anyway, I've got it written on the windshield and a tag in the window so you can see what we're talking about. This is a little City Express van. It's a little 4-cylinder automatic. Every door on this thing opens. I know that because I borrowed it to help my daughter move some stuff. Great little car. It's got cruise control, got a good radio in it, gets about 30 miles a gallon, in-town delivery or something. It's a beautiful little thing. The thing lists for 24 grand. Tagged. We tagged this one, 18.5.
Remarkable.
You're knocking off $5,500. Anybody looking for a little City Express van? Like I say, the whole thing opens up. You can put a bunch of stuff in it. Great gas mileage. $18,500. It's just a little express van. It'd be great for in-town deliveries and that kind of thing.
We're moving on to the next one.
Last year's car of the year, Chevrolet Impala, redesigned, beautiful car. This one right here, stickers for $36,000, almost $300. $36,300. $7,985 off because again it is
tagged.
So $7,985 off of it. $28,300. We've got program cars with 15,000 miles that are not much cheaper than this.
That's right. Yeah.
This one's got navigation. It's got heated suede seats. It's got all the safety, side blind alert, forward collision crash alert, all that kind of stuff. If you want a red Impala, $28,300. That's almost $8 grand off the price.
That is remarkable. That is remarkable in today's market.
It's a great buy. I mean, it's almost as inexpensive as buying. Here comes the number 5 car right there that may be sold.
Let's talk about this one.
It's another Impala, but this is just an LT. It's not the hot dog like that one right there. This has a little less in it. Doesn't have navigation and heat seats and all that stuff. It lists for $31,180. Got a little over $6,000 off, $6,190 to be exact. So because it is tagged, that's the word we want to
tagged.
$24,990.
Gotcha.
$24,990.
Wow. Yeah.
Again, it's last year's car of the year. It's a great vehicle. If you want something really, really loaded and really, really special, that's your guy right there. But this, about 30 miles a gallon. Insurance is cheap. Impalas have been around since Moby Dick was a minnow. They've been around forever.
Yes, sir.
They're great cars. You won't find a better buy than that one.
Hey, let me ask this while we walk to the next one. So normally if you come in and look at a list price car like that, and because it's not tagged, we don't get that same deal, correct? These are ones that they've got to go, and they're great cars. It's just because y'all elected to tag them.
Right.
We're going to sell them.
Yeah,
we're going to sell them at a discount.
That's right.
I think it's a unique concept. It's a little different. It's a different concept.
And it's a little frustrating, David, because you come out and you say, okay, here's the deal. Somebody says, I love that price. do you have a black one for that?
That's right, yeah.
Well, we didn't tag a black one. We tagged a white one and a red one. Well,
Right.
how about the black one? Well, we didn't tag a black one.
Right,
And
yeah.
if we'd have tagged the black one, they said, boy, you got a white one? You just, and again, it goes back to what I said earlier. If they would just say, you qualify for 10 tags, put them on your desk, and when David Black or when Ben Black or when
Sure.
Sue Pennington comes out here to buy a car, she says, I want to buy that truck, let me tag
Tag
it.
that, yeah, I
Then
agree.
get it.
I agree. I agree.
So, you know, at the end of the month, it's like, well, we had 10 tags, we sold 8 of them, the 2 other ones we didn't tag, and, you know, the people wanted, so maybe we can do it later.
What else do we have tagged? Because you're talking about a beautiful pickup truck, 4-wheel drive, Silverado, the class of Chevrolet, no doubt.
This truck lists for a little over $49,000. And because of the
Tag.
it's $11,090 off. You can buy this truck for $37,985.
11
A
grand
little
off
over
sticker.
$11,000 off. And it's got the chrome wheels, Z71. It's got heated cloth seats, got navigation. You know, it's a heavy loaded truck. It's tagged. It's got the vent shades and the window tint and all that kind of stuff on it. It's a great truck. We tagged it. If you look at our lot, most time you're going to see white, silver, black, and red.
That's correct.
That's
That is
what we
correct.
sell.
Absolutely.
We don't do a lot of candy colors.
That's
We
correct.
Just don't, that's not our market. But this is a great looking truck. It's got it all ready to roll, and you can save over $11,000 if you like this truck.
Hey, that's an incredible savings because even at the end of the year when we're really trying to move the inventory and go to the next model year, I don't remember $11,000 off. I don't remember that.
$7,000,
Yeah.
$7,500, but that's $11,000, a little over $11,000 off. $37,985 for a truck that lists for over $49,000.
Well, the good thing about this is when you come in and just if there is some question about it, we can explain it. I think you can't explain it any better than what you did because these are the tagged ones. These are the ones that have special discounts, and these are the ones that if you don't like these particular cars, and here's the deal anyway, John, if somebody doesn't like the car, it doesn't matter what it costs.
Yeah, it doesn't make a difference.
Doesn't
They
make
don't
any
like it,
difference.
they don't want it.
Even
if it's free, they don't
That's
like it.
correct.
At
Absolutely
the
right.
end of the month, we'll probably they'll have what they call, I think, a rehash or retag or something.
Okay.
We'll get to choose more.
Okay, got you.
So if somebody has got something in mind that they're dead set on that they want to buy, if they'll come out here and visit with us and say, look, when the next tag thing comes out, if you'll tag that car,
Okay.
that's what I'm looking for.
Okay.
You know, we can say, okay, David, we'll tag that for you, and as soon as that thing qualifies for the tag, we'll holler at you.
Wow.
So
wow.
it's a roll forward kind of thing, a little bit confusing, but if somebody has got something on their mind, come out here and tell us which vehicle you want. We'll hold it till we get to tagging up, then we'll tag it, and you'll get that extra savings.
As long as somebody else doesn't come along and say, yeah, I'll take it now without the tag.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah.
John G., I think it's a wonderful concept. I think it's a different concept. And
Well, it's major savings, and it's really good for the
absolutely
consumer.
it is.
It just makes it a little bit tougher because I just wish they'd throw it open on the whole lot and say everything you got can be tagged for 30 days.
Absolutely.
And that'd make it great, but that's not the way it works. So, and Elliot and Dean, those guys are pretty good at picking out about what we sell, so they're pretty much right on.
Absolutely.
You know, it's just a little frustrating when you've got a great deal, but the color ain't right.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it's
yeah,
okay. It's part
absolutely.
of the business.
Absolutely.
But the main thing is, after all that's said and done, cars are cars, and just about everybody has the same prices nationwide. Right back there with those
Service.
guys, that service department, we've got 14 loaner vehicles. Right, we got 14 loaners, courtesy cars in
Right,
our fleet right now.
right.
Every single one of them are out.
Is that right?
I had
So
to
we're
have-
working back here in the back. As we always have, no doubt, as we always have.
We do things that are uncanny that people have never ever thought about doing. So, if you want to get a car and buy it here, you will not surpass our service. It's the best in the country, I think. We've got people from Jonesboro, we've got people from Truman, got people from Little Rock come get their car serviced.
Yes, absolutely.
They drive past other General Motors dealerships to come here. I'm
Yes,
serious.
they do.
And
Yes.
you know it because you sold them a long time. These guys are
Absolutely.
the best at what they do. Give us a chance to earn your business. If you'll do that, you'll never go anywhere else for your motor company business. We love what we do. We're good at it. We got a lot of people that say that, and we try as hard as we can to do everything right. We make mistakes because we're human,
Absolutely.
but we will make up for it if we can. Come out to George Kell Motors, take a look at this beautiful new dealership. Come visit with us, have a cup of coffee, and look at one of these tagged units.
John G., my friend, it is always a pleasure to get to come out and visit with you.
Always good to see you.
Talk
brother.
about automobiles here at George Kell Motor Company.
You bet.
Let's continue on with more of the Remember When program. What a pleasure it is here on Remember When to bring in somebody that's very dear to my heart and also your heart here in Newport, Jackson County and throughout Northeast Arkansas. You've seen Jan Jackson Maris lots of times on the Business Spotlight, but I thought it would be very, very interesting to see what she remembers about Newport, Arkansas. Welcome, my friend.
Thank you, David.
We've talked a lot about Jackson's Funeral Home, and we'll talk about Jackson's Funeral Home during this program. But we want to find out a little bit about you and what you remember about Newport, and what you did when you were a kid, and what you liked, so on and so forth. So tell me about born and raised, and from there, just for starters.
Well, I was born at the old Harris Hospital, which is now the welfare office.
Right.
My mother became very, very ill, and she went to Little Rock and spent a month. She almost died. The nursery at Harris Hospital allowed me to stay there until she came home. She came home and weighed about 70 pounds and didn't have any hair.
My goodness gracious.
But she made it, and she made it strong, and she was a wonderful mother, and to Jerry and Linda and to me, and you just couldn't beat any better than that. And after she got her strength back, and it was probably close to a year, then she went to work at the funeral home. Went back to work at the funeral home. She had formerly, before she and Daddy married, been the manager at Sears, but she went back to work in the funeral home, and Miss Wanda Jackson, who lived directly behind us, was my babysitter, and I love her to this day, and all of her family. And it was a great it was a great house to grow up. You know, you grew up, you learned how to shell peas, you ate real food for breakfast and lunch. You ate beans and cornbread and ham, and the best food in the whole world, really. And you behaved.
Yes,
you knew how to behave. And I made several friends who are lifetime friends to me now. And then, of course, as time passed, those of us who were born in 63 and 64 marched out of our daycares and went right on to Miss Doris's kindergarten, which was one of the best experiences in the whole world. And you know, always one of the things that I wanted to be was a kindergarten teacher. I wanted to be just like Miss Doris.
Really?
Yes. And then, of course, you go on to Castleberry Elementary, and Miss Vondren was my first grade teacher, and I loved her, and she became expecting. You didn't say the other word then. And she was expecting, so Miss Fay Holt came. And she was our teacher. She subbed for the rest of the year, and I just adored her. She taught me to keep my mouth shut, which was a hard row to hoe. A hard lesson learned, because I've not had a shut mouth in a long time. And then, of course, Castleberry Elementary was a fabulous place to be. And, you know, we talked a little bit about favorite teachers there. All my favorite. Miss Theda Smith was one of my favorites.
Great teacher.
It's just, you couldn't keep naming because you would leave out too many of the ladies I loved. And then, you know, it was a big deal going over to junior high school, and Mr. Dwight Williams was our principal.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Miss Ruby
Williams
was the counselor, and that was a really good time too. You know, you met another section of friends, because back then junior high is where Albright and Castleberry came together. Yeah. So you as nervous as you were about it, you just soon after the second day you figured you had a whole nother group of friends. Your friend group grew, and so that was fun. And I'll have to say, going to Newport High School was wonderful. It was a great experience. It prepared me to go on to college. I probably should have had things a little tougher than I did in high school to prepare me for college, but that wasn't any teacher's fault. That was my fault.
You live and learn, don't you?
You live and learn, you sure do. And I went on to Harding for a year, and then graduated from Hendrix and came back home and went to work with my mother and daddy.
Let me go back to elementary school.
Uh-huh.
What do you remember around Newport when you were a preteen, just preteen? What do you remember around any establishments that you remember, any restaurants you remember? What are some of your thoughts about what you remember during that time?
what I remember most would of course be restaurants. And I remember every day after school, my mother would either take me to Headley's drugstore
Yeah.
or up to Midway Sandwich Shop to Poppy's, to Money and Poppy's, and I'd have a grilled cheese with pickles.
You
And
like
pickles on the side. Pickles on the
Really?
side.
Okay.
Love pickles on the side. And of course, if you shopped around at Headley's, you always found a little something you probably needed. And if you went to Poppy's, you always got the best love in the whole world.
I guarantee you.
And the one place or two places that I remember us eating out for dinner was Tom's,
Tom,
where U.S. Pizza is
correct.
now,
Right.
and also Kelly's Grill and Punch's.
Punch's
You
Restaurant.
cannot beat Punch's cheese dip.
Friday and Saturday night,
Friday
Punch's
and
had Mexican food that was simply out of this world.
Out of this world.
Yeah.
Out of this world. It was the best.
And-
And you knew everybody in the restaurant.
Absolutely.
And when you walked in, you had to follow your parents around as they spoke to everybody in the restaurant, you know, and that went for any place you went. And I know at Tom and Mordell's out at the where U.S. Pizza is now, I always had to have a couple of quarters to play the jukebox.
Absolutely.
Because that was a
Jukebox.
big deal.
Jukebox.
A jukebox was a big deal to me.
I think
And-
a jukebox was a big to all of us back in those days. And the younger folks don't remember what a jukebox is.
No,
They don't know what
no,
a jukebox
not
is.
a clue.
Actually, put money in, you play music for it, plays your favorite, and it actually brings the record down. I mean,
And
had
you
put the
get to
record-
watch
Yeah,
it.
you get to watch the thing come and turn, and that's pretty neat. That's pretty. Well, other than your restaurants, you remember places of business that were in town that maybe are not here, or
Oh.
ones that are still here, or what do you remember about businesses that you liked or that you went? You know, and I'm talking about either preteen or high school years here.
Oh, that you went into always Spencer's Dress Shop and Moto Day and the men's shops. You know, you had Mr. Gullick's men's shop and you had Star Clothing
That's right.
and you had PK Homes. You know, I would go with my dad and buy suits when he would go and buy suits up there.
right.
You know, and I always loved to go to Grimes Drugstore and Shannon Ritter Drugstore. At Grimes Drugstore, I always got the little dolls. I've lost the name of them.
I don't remember. But you're talking about all
They're-
places that are downtown. Just
Those were all downtown, all
within a couple
Front
blocks.
Street.
Yeah, the three men's stores
We're
on
right there
one block.
together.
on
Yeah,
one block,
yeah.
and they all made money, and they all did well, and
absolutely.
it was just it was as a kid, and you and I are close to the same age. You're quite a bit younger than I am, but I mean those are some childhood memories that I have, and I guess being with your daddy some, you remember full service stations.
Oh, absolutely,
Yeah. Talk a little bit about
absolutely. Well, I mean, we'd always go by Mr. Denver Chisholm's and right over here to Raymond Riddell.
Yep.
I remember one time, Daddy, that we always had an old blue backhoe, and when it would snow, we would scrape the parking lot off. Well, I rode the backhoe, and he was scraping it off, and we ran out of gas.
Oh no.
So we had to walk up to Mr. Riddell's, and as we were walking right about in front of where Fred's was, my dad slipped and fell all the
no.
way back. And of course, I got tickled. Inappropriately, but I got tickled. And, you know, it's just those things. And Mr. Riddell would always let me sign the ticket.
Is that right? Yeah.
It didn't
sign
matter,
tickets.
sign the ticket.
Yeah, you had
If
charge
you
account.
didn't, you had a charge account always. You never paid any money at the gas station.
Paid it at the end of
That
the month.
was the biggest shock to me to
Yeah.
have to pay for gas. But I always signed my ticket, whether I could print my name actually or not.
Is that right?
I can remember just putting a J on the ticket. And oh, he would make the biggest deal out of it and be so sweet.
But lots of we didn't have convenience stores as such.
No.
We had some grocery stores. Had lots of grocery stores around town. Those
We
what we call
did,
mom and
we
pop grocery
did.
stores.
Big Star,
Yeah. What else?
the big Kroger, Cruising Lindsay's.
Cruising Lindsay's. Yes. Dunn's Grocery.
Oh, I rode my bicycle to Dunn's at least once a day.
I bet you did. It's
And you
awfully
never
close.
pay, awfully close. And Mr. Hall's.
Yes. Yeah.
And you never paid a dime at either one of those.
Right.
They pulled that ticket off and you made your little signature, made your little mark. And
You know, I do remember, and I know this show's not about me, but I remember my dad had a tire store where, at a Dairy Queen next door where Hardee's is now is where Dad's store, but the Greyhound Inn became there. Like, but I used to go out, I used to get money out of the cashier, and my daddy said, just get you a dime or 15 cents, and I used to go over and get me a brown derby in a cup. I was just, you know, oh, that sounds pretty good. And then, do you remember the Dairy Queens being downtown? Do you remember, or not downtown, but they're on the highway across the street from Lakeside Chevrolet when there was a Dairy Queen there?
oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, I do. And my grandparents actually lived right across from the Chevrolet place where Old Hickory is now.
Oh,
They had a
really?
house. They sure did.
So
Up
you
until
were
I was
real
about
close to the
3.
Dairy Queen.
Uh-huh. I don't have a lot of memories of going to that house,
Right.
but they lived right in there. And you know, I mean, living where I lived right here behind the funeral home, of course your favorite Dairy Queen was Jack's Dairy Cup.
Absolutely. You're awfully close
I mean,
to that one,
you
too.
could
Jack's
walk
Dairy
right into there and get your best foot long. And I remember it was the best of days when I got old enough when Jerry and Linda would take me, and I could go up to the window and get the order.
And order your
That
own.
was
That's pretty cool, wasn't it?
that was the best. You know, you just felt like you were bulletproof at that
Well,
point.
you were,
I mean,
weren't
you
you?
could just get right up there and
And you
order
really
your
like
own
those
food.
places where you
could
can
barely
sign the ticket.
see.
Yeah, I know.
But
I mean, it's amazing what you remember as a kid.
it
It's
is.
amazing
It
what
is.
you
And the
can
Dog and Suds. I loved
Yeah.
going to Dog and Suds. And I remember a little tiny bit about the drive-in movie.
Across from Jack's
Uh-huh,
Dairy Cup. Yeah, drive-in. Folks, we're talking about things in Newport, and it's been a long time ago, but it hadn't been that long ago because we have great memories of those places. But that was just small-town America, and it was certainly small-town Newport, Arkansas. Boy, that's what made it special, didn't it?
It did. It did. And I remember Purdy's Flower Shop being on Walnut Street and then in the mall.
Yeah, sure. Yeah.
And Rainey's being the Purple House on
McLean Street.
Purple House on McLean. And of course we had big, wonderful relationships with them because they were always in and out of the funeral home delivering flowers.
Right.
So they were our dear friends too. And it's growing up in Newport was a privilege.
Wasn't it, though?
And I'm glad I'm gonna grow old here.
Absolutely.
At least I hope I get to grow old.
We got a lot more to talk about. We're going to take a break and be right back. But Jan Jackson Maris at the Jackson Funeral Home, we're talking about Newport, Arkansas, and we're remembering when things were like they were. We'll be right back. Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822. Well, welcome back, and we're visiting with Jan Jackson Maris at the Jackson's Funeral Home, and what I always like to say, and Bud Black always likes to say, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport. We're talking about Newport, Arkansas, and some of the things that we remember growing up, and lots of places of businesses. And this is an election year, Miss Jan, and
It is.
Election time in Newport, Arkansas was special. Tell us about what happened on election day here.
Oh my goodness. Election time was special because you could bet there were pie suppers you attended, there were rallies, there were people coming to your house.
Right?
All night, all in the evening hours, during lunch times. They were passing out cards, they were asking for your votes. If you went out shopping, you could bet you would come home with a fist of 4 or 5 cards.
I guarantee you.
Because people were out there asking for your vote and your support.
Personally.
Personally.
Yeah, absolutely.
It was them or their daughters or their kids, and that's what people did. And they didn't talk ugly about each other. There wasn't any of that, at least none that I was ever aware of. And I thought election nights were one of the most fun nights in the whole world. It was just almost like 4th of July to me.
Tell us about election nights.
Because we all were outside.
Right.
Everybody was outside, like over the best I can picture it. It was over by the post office.
It was by the Newport Independent.
By the Newport
Yeah,
Independent,
absolutely.
which was close to the post office.
Absolutely. Yeah, right behind it.
And I guess I can remember walking up that street and seeing what to me was a chalkboard
That's what it was.
that would rival any big city marquee.
Yeah.
Wonder where that chalkboard is today.
Oh,
And
what a great piece that would be.
that would be so much fun to have that. But and I can't imagine what the real size of it is.
Right.
But it was tall because people rode on it on ladders.
Right, absolutely. And they had to get them. It's a chalkboard where they put the results of the election.
They put the results of the election, and they would call them out, and whoever was writing them would go over there and write, and the crowd would go, oh, yay, or
great
whatever.
memory, yeah.
You know, and I was so small, I had to ride on my dad's shoulders, which I thought was great big business.
Right.
And then I guess probably maybe the last time I remember that is about 1977.
Okay.
And that's when Jerry ran for corner for the first time.
Okay.
And it's when Ray, you know who
I know exactly who you're talking about.
not Marshall Ray, Marshall Ray's dad.
Donald Ray. Donald Ray.
Donald Ray, my brain gets stuck sometimes. Donald Ray ran for sheriff that same year. Gerald Carlisle ran for prosecuting attorney. I mean, there was just mounds of people who ran that year, and it was a really big year. And I remember Mr. Donald Ray's bumper stickers always said, I only need one vote to win, and that's yours.
And that's
I mean,
yours.
you know, things get embedded in your mind, and that's one of those things. And, of course, I had a T-shirt that said, elect my brother, Jerry Hewlett Corner. You know, I mean, everybody had their T-shirts supporting their specific candidates, and it was an active time. It was something. But I can remember going up in the top of the courthouse in '77 and watching them count the different precincts,
Sure.
and yelling out the answers.
Absolutely.
And then I guess they would get them down to the person on the ground who was putting them on the chalkboard. I mean, it was just an elaborate thing. And then I remember over the years, as coroner, Jerry's job was to deliver all the ballot boxes.
Okay.
So
Okay.
we always had a big job in that every year.
It hadn't been that long ago that I mean, it really has, but it depends on what spectrum of time you're looking at. But, you know, now it's electronic voting. You go in there and vote, and it's already counted and all that. But this, I mean, you just filled out a paper ballot, and somebody had opened up and said, okay, for Sheriff Joe, for prosecuting attorney Tom, for, you know, I mean, it was just a count every vote.
Count every vote. Oh, and it would be up into the wee hours of the night.
Yeah.
And you would be allowed to stay up to watch the results, even though you couldn't stay awake. But I just couldn't stand to not stay up and see who won.
Isn't that something?
And I would be mortified for anybody who lost. You know,
People campaigning. I want to talk a little bit more about that. But people would actually, I mean, they would campaign all the way up until the time you walked into your voting precinct. And we used to have
Absolutely.
precincts around the community.
Yes, we did.
Yeah, everybody
Yes,
remembers
we
that.
did.
Precincts, it wasn't all done at one place. It just,
Nope.
you went to these precincts and they had election workers.
Mm-hmm.
We had it at Lakeside Chevrolet when it was McDonald Chevrolet at the time, and people voted in there. And that was a great time to work, as far as I was concerned, because I got to see a lot of people and ask them, did they happen to need a new automobile or whatever. But
And
Newport,
you know, there was always a group standing on the corner, however many feet apart, asking you to vote for
absolutely,
their
absolutely,
candidate.
yeah.
There was it was never just walk in, walk out.
No,
there
they
was
would give you your card.
10
Give you
or
the card.
12. If they could get to you without getting too close.
Yeah. And now the rules and regulations for you to campaign, you have to be across the street or something. You can't really bother people because before you go in the door, there's people getting blah, 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 blah. And they were respectful and nice.
They were.
Yeah, absolutely.
They
And boy, what a great time. Let's talk a little bit about, and we're talking about things that happened in your teen life, preteen life. Tell me about high school again. Tell me about some of the things that you did when you were growing up during that time. Well, what'd y'all do? What'd y'all do for recreation? I know we didn't do Facebook, and I know we didn't do social media, but what did y'all do?
Got in the car, your daddy filled it up, and you went from the Sonic to the Walmart parking lot and back to the Sonic and to the Walmart parking lot. And sometimes you might venture way out by where some of your friends lived in Normandy Acres,
right,
and circle by their friends, those friends' houses, and see if they might be home.
That's right.
And then, if you got really brave, you might go downtown and kind of look at the lake and look through the park and kind of come back down. And then you kind of have to slow back down on that mileage and go from the Sonic to the Walmart parking lot. And then occasionally there'd be somebody you could stop and visit with at the Sonic, and occasionally there'd be somebody you could stop and visit with at the parking lot. But
fun, wasn't it?
It was fun. It was great fun.
You know,
and
I remember these things that you're talking about, and there are some people in our audience who may be older that can't remember that or younger and obviously don't remember that. But parking at the Sonic from time to time before, I used to wonder. I remember Mr. Long down there came.
Absolutely.
Great guy, great Renaissance. And he came and said, "Look, folks, y'all are welcome here. Appreciate your business." He said, sometimes that y'all might need to just come in and spend a little time and then maybe move on down a little bit and then come back a little bit later. And the reason was we were taking up all the Sonic spots, and if somebody else wanted to come by to buy something, they couldn't because there wasn't a spot because all the kids were there. But he was always good to us.
He was very good to us. Very good to us.
What high school activities? What'd you do in high school? What'd you like to do in high school? What were some of the things that you did or just?
Well, I don't have an athletic bone in my body.
Right.
But I always liked going to the football games and enjoyed. And my senior year, which was '82, the '81 Hounds won the state championship, and we're all still very proud of them.
Absolutely.
And I always went to camps in the summer and participated in different things. I can't even think right now.
Right, sure.
But it seems like I was always busy in high school, and mainly I enjoyed my friends.
Yeah.
And doing and going with them. You know, I never had enough athletic ability in me to be a cheerleader or a whippet.
Right, I got you.
But I could always support them, and I did.
Absolutely. Yeah. In '82 and '81, talk a little bit about that whole season. You remember that? Do you remember much? I mean, not in particulars, but boy, what a run the Greyhounds had.
It was a run.
Yeah.
It was a fabulous run, and it was a fantastic bunch of guys that really, really knew how to play football. They'd been taught by the best,
right.
Coach Billy Keaty,
Absolutely.
Coach Bill Keaty.
Absolutely.
And they had a spirit of camaraderie.
Mm-hmm.
And all of the students, whether they were cheerleaders or whippets or whether they were just their friends, everybody had, and the parents.
Sure.
And everybody was behind them, and people didn't miss games. And I know that final game the year before we had lost, and it was a pouring down rain in '80. That was a tough game to lose.
In Newport.
But that just in Newport,
yes.
Because I can remember being soaked all the way to the bone. I don't ever remember being any wetter if I wasn't swimming, you know. And the next year, I think it just gave more determination to that group of guys and the people who supported them, and that it helped them win. And I know all of those guys came back and rooted for those teams.
Right,
you know,
right.
If they weren't busy in college, if they had a weekend off, they were here supporting those Hounds because that's who they were as they were Hounds.
Student body did a lot of supporting of our athletic events, and we might not see as much of that anymore, but I mean, just the student body, just like you're talking about, you weren't on the team, but you were in the student body, and you thought, I'm going to support my team, I'm going to support my school.
Well, you were a Greyhound. It didn't
Absolutely.
matter what you were.
Still
you were
are.
a Greyhound.
Yeah, still are. Let's talk a little bit about College. You said started Harding.
Went to
Henry.
Harding.
Tell me about what was college like for you?
Well, I enjoyed being at Harding, and I made some lifetime friends. And then Terry Heatherly was going to Hendrix, so I just decided that was another step, and I wanted to go and live with Terry in that dorm. And I did. There were several people from Newport that were there at Hendrix at that time. Terry was there. John Junkin was there. Wiley Michaels was there.
Wow.
There were several of us there, and I made friends that are still friends to this day. You know, I don't see them a great deal, but I studied business and economics, and I always say that I learned a great deal, but I didn't really get educated until I came home and went to work.
Then you learn what this whole world's all
then
about.
I learned what this, or at least as much as I do know
Right,
to this
absolutely.
point.
Absolutely.
You know, I feel like all of those years gave me some great definition and maybe some good ideas, and they definitely gave me wonderful friendships and people that will be great parts of my life forever. But my education came right here at 1900 Malcolm Avenue.
When you came back from, did you stay at college a lot? Were you there a lot, or did you come home most on the weekends? Or
I came home a lot on the
Right, okay.
weekends, and my friends would come with me.
Absolutely.
You know, I stayed some, but not a great deal. I was never one of those people who wanted to be away from Newport, Arkansas. For
I
very
never want to be
long.
away from my mama.
Me either. Me either.
I love Newport, Arkansas, and I know when I pull in on the freeway, I can't imagine not pulling in to stay the night. I think of people that have moved, people that have moved, and you go, they're not going to stay the night in Newport, Arkansas as their home, and that bothers me that I would have to do that. I don't want to go anywhere.
I don't either.
I don't either. Yeah, I just want to just.
I mean, I love to visit and I love to travel.
Sure.
But I tell you, my mother would ride with me lots of times, taking Jessica over to Jonesboro to violin or to dance or to wherever we went, or if we went to Searcy, and we'd ride back. And we've always, from the time I was a little girl, when you would get to the sign that said Jackson County, we would all go,
Home sweet home. Yeah.
smells better here,
Yeah,
doesn't it?
yeah,
And
I
I
do.
still do it. And Jessica does it. I mean, we just smells better here, doesn't it?
It does that. We'll get into more about you coming home, and obviously you had been around the funeral home business when you were a little kid, really, and then you came home, got to working and really being a productive part. Not that you weren't when you were a kid, because you certainly were. But we'll talk more about that when we come right back. What a pleasure it is to get to visit with Miss Jan Jackson Maris at Jackson Funeral Home. We're talking about what we both remember about growing up in Newport, Arkansas, and the great things and the great people that were here, and some of the things that you and I talked about during the break about when the city started expanding many, many years ago. And we moved from downtown out to East Newport.
Out to it's a long way.
Long way, and people talk about East Newport a lot today. The old, yes,
Absolutely.
the one, not older folks, because we're that, but they talk about East Newport. Tell us what East Newport is and what you remember about East Newport.
Well, my dad always told me that the marker of East Newport is about the center of the bridge on Newport Lake.
Right.
You know, if you've gone to the farmer's market, you're out in East Newport.
That's right.
About the middle of that bridge to the left, that's Newport proper.
That's Newport proper.
Newport proper for sure. And things did start moving out that way. The department store became less Ben Franklin's and the dime store to Gibson's
Sterling.
was the first.
Yeah,
And
Gibson's.
Sterling.
Gibson's, yeah.
Gibson's was our first big department store.
Right, yeah.
And I thought that was a big deal to get to go to Gibson's where Pratt Square is now.
That is correct.
Where the
That is-
bowling alley is.
that is correct,
Isn't that
yeah.
where it
Uh-huh,
was?
uh-huh.
And so, yeah, we really started moving. When, in my memory, the house that I grew up in here on Dill Street, the street behind the funeral home was a dirt road.
Really?
Really. And right in behind, we were far enough out in the country that we kept a horse in our backyard. My horse's name was Toby, but we kept a horse in the backyard.
Y'all were out in the country, weren't
We
you?
were out and we lived in the country.
Y'all were in southeast Newport.
Really?
Y'all were south of the road out here.
And the road paved was only 2 lanes.
Yeah, in Newport,
It
yeah.
was only 2 lanes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I even remember the light fixtures and how they
How
were.
they looked.
Yeah, just, I mean, the kind of yelling. Why would I remember that? I just remember
Probably sitting in the back seat looking at them as you went by, you know.
That's what I was doing. And what else moved to East Newport? Of course, Walmart came along later. And
Walmart came along. Of course, we had a big bowling alley out where Ace
10
was.
Pin Lanes.
10 Pin Lanes. That
Yeah.
was Mr. Bruce Brantley's.
Talk
for
a
a
little bit
long
about that
time.
because lots of people bowled.
Lots of people bowled. My mother was even on a bowling league,
Yes.
and you would go out there and play, and they would get these little trophies with the little marble bottoms, and I'm sure those came from Ray O'Fan.
Right, yeah, there you go.
And with the little plastic bowler on top. But they would all get one, but they would bowl once a week and practice once a week.
Right.
And just had great times.
They had a men's league and a women's league and a mixed league. And
Yes.
Yeah, bowled all the time.
Uh-huh.
You talk about those
They did.
trophies. In my office, and I just moved them from one side of my office to the other, the small part of the office to the big, a lot of team trophies. My mom and dad were both pretty good bowlers.
Really?
And they won a lot of team trophies because Dad was the sponsor of, Buddy Black's Tire Store was the sponsor, but I've got something 1956.
Wow.
You know, 1956, and here's who bowled on this team. And Bud Black and Sam Penix and Sam Lamantina and Doris White and you know, I mean, those are young guys. just
Yeah,
young
they
guys.
were young.
Yeah, but the 10 Pin Lanes, yeah.
10 Pin Lanes. It was a great place.
It was Victor Lanes before it was 10 Pin Lanes.
Oh,
Do you remember
see,
that?
that's out of my.
Yeah, Victor Metal, Victor Lanes.
Really?
Yeah, Victor Lanes, absolutely. I think they had 8 lanes maybe.
That's probably
Yeah,
right.
I think they had 8.
8 lanes.
And that place seemed so big as a kid.
Oh, huge. Huge.
I never forget.
And I never could figure out how those pins really, I never asked, you know, I didn't want to appear like I didn't know something. I never knew how those pins all got picked up and put back right in order, you know. I just had this mental image of people back there going,
Do you know, before the automatic machines, they had pinball boys.
Really?
And they, when you knocked them down, they would honestly would grab them, and then they would set them up, not quite as straight as the machine did, but at one time, you know.
In Newport, we had pinball boys?
Absolutely, years ago, yeah.
Did you get to be a pinball boy?
I wasn't a pinball boy, but I bowled, or I tried to bowl a little bit when those pinball boys were back there, but I never was one, but yeah. They did. They pick it up. Isn't that neat? Isn't that neat? What else do you remember about Newport during that time?
I'll tell you, one thing is, this just popped in my mind, but many years ago, the ambulance services were run by the funeral homes.
Okay.
And most of the places in my young years when it was very, very cold, where I watched a football game, is from the ambulance.
Really?
Because they would sit right over there and wait for something. Now, my mother or somebody was always ready for me to be handed off and get out if they had an emergency, but we always sat in the ambulance to stay warm. That's right about where the ambulance sits now.
Is that right? Yeah. Well, I know this. Newport, America has changed. We've all changed.
It has.
And Newport has changed, but that and I mentioned Walmart coming to town and moving from downtown to East Newport. It kind of hurt the downtown, but you know, Newport's downtown's coming back some.
Newport's downtown is coming back.
Yeah.
It is coming back. And you know, when the mall opened back in the early 70s, we all thought we were living in the big city.
Sure, had
You
a
know,
mall.
we had Jamestown Dress Shop and Cox Cobbler and the Sampson T-shirt.
Absolutely.
And Purdy's went in the mall, and Van Atkins was always such a huge part of Newport. And
Was Angela's ever out there?
Angela's was out there. It's where Angela's became Cox Cobbler.
It did.
Angela's was, I remember it being by Headley's Drugstore
Downtown.
downtown.
I think you're right. Yes, yes.
And then it moved out into the mall where what most people would remember as Cox Cobbler.
Right, absolutely.
And then Miss Billie Jean Stacy and Kim bought it from Miss Angela.
Right, yeah.
And then Miss Katrina and Miss Bobby bought it from them.
Isn't it something? Yeah, because the mall was a.
And they sold Estee Lauder.
Is that right?
I mean,
Yeah.
we were uptown.
Yeah, it's big time.
You
wasn't it?
didn't need to go to Jonesboro for anything.
Right. And we
If
had
you
it all
lived
here,
in
didn't
Newport,
we? Had it all here.
And I know my friend Dee Dee, she talks about she would leave. She was in Lyon College, and she said we would leave Lyon and go to Newport to shop because
shop.
you had so much better shopping opportunities and nice things. I mean, we had some really smart entrepreneurial
Yeah, right.
men and women.
Yeah, I guarantee we
and
did.
That made beautiful businesses, and B&B Limited.
Yeah, yeah.
That was just a great shop where I bought my first makeup
Is that right?
from Sue
Is-
Ellen Beard and
Yeah.
Miss Burgess. Sue Ellen Burton. and
Right, yeah,
Miss
right.
Burgess.
Change. We've just seen a lot of change. A lot of it's been good, and again, we talked about how good it is to be in Newport, Arkansas, and what else about along the highway do we remember? You talked about where you went to downtown years ago. We had the Strand
Oh,
and the
yes.
Capitol Theater,
See, the Capitol I don't remember.
right? And then after that, tell us about where we went to the. We called it the show, is what I called it. We went
The
to show.
New Village Twin Cinema.
Yeah.
And I can remember, I mean, we went every Friday night and every Sunday night after church when we got older. You know, but every Friday night our parents would let us out and we would line up. And if it was a really great show, that line might reach all the way out to the highway.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you'd start with the 7 o'clock show and they'd stay in that line and go on to the 9 o'clock show.
That is correct. That is
And
correct.
Mr.
Wow.
Wayne Beard, for some reason, he had a great talent. He would get the newest movies.
Right.
And I know Rhett worked at the theater, and he said Wayne would get the newest titles out there, and he would play them. Sometimes
You
he would
bet.
play 3 features.
You bet. And
You know,
in the Village Mall, which is on the east side, right beside the Pizza Hut.
Right beside the Pizza
The bigger
Hut.
building that's kind of detached from the rest of the mall. Village Twins.
Village Twin Cinema.
Had 2 of them in one, didn't we? Twin
did.
Cinema.
Twin Cinema.
Twin Cinema. The Village Twin Cinema.
That's right, and you could see that light up in that upstairs.
Sure, yeah,
You
yeah,
know,
with the film
Mr.
room.
Wayne was up there, Miss Ann, in
Yeah,
the film room,
the
in
film
their
room.
office.
They actually
And-
had a projector that projected the film on a
Sure
big
did,
screen.
Sure did, and they came in great big reels.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And my bunch would always drink pickle juice at the movie.
Is that right? I don't remember that pickle
We did
from
pick-
from a
the
jar of
big
pickle.
jar of pickles.
Yeah.
You'd say, I want pickle juice, and just love it.
Let me ask you this. We're going to have to probably close out this segment here and get back to some final thoughts about your remembering Newport, Arkansas. And I guess I want to talk just a little bit before we go. Tell me about your involvement in Jackson's funeral home. From a kid, you came back from college. How'd it go? Tell me from the time you got back to college, from college.
Well, when I came back from college, I was in the process of getting married, and I got married on December 28th of 85. And then we came home and we moved into the Smith townhouses, and the following Monday I came to work, and my dad put me back in here to cleaning out an office. He was going to put me in a little office space where he could start showing me things
Sure.
a little at a time, and so my first job was cleaning.
That's the way it always is.
First job was cleaning out an office, and I did that, and then he started bringing me in and having me sit with he and families while they made funeral arrangements. And then he would make the arrangements and do the speaking, and I would do the writing.
Mm-hmm.
And then he would have me do the writing and the speaking. And it's kind of evolved from that, you know. I mean, he took me to conventions and said, always look for the newest thing, the newer, what's going on, what do you think will benefit your families? Because
Right.
you don't want to do things the same way always.
Right,
You
innovative
want to be
ideas.
able to get new ideas and to be progressive, and that's what we've done. That's what he did.
Sure.
And that's what we've done, and
I think
it's
you've
worked
done okay.
out.
I
It's
think
worked
you've
out. We
it's
worked
worked
very hard
it's worked
at
out real well, hasn't it?
has worked out real well. It's blessed my life to work with so many different people, and I feel like I have friends and belong to families for a lifetime.
Absolutely.
You know,
Absolutely. Jan Jackson Maris, and Remember When, and we're remembering some good stuff. The Village Twin Cinema. I like that. But we're going to take a break, and we'll be right back with our final segment. Jackson's Funeral Home and the Jackson family have been serving our friends and neighbors in Jackson County during some of the most difficult times of their lives for nearly 60 years. We believe the highest standard of care is achieved when people are given the tools needed to make the most informed decision for the benefit of their family. For us, there's no greater honor than to care for our friends and our neighbors in their time of need. The Jackson's Funeral Homes, the 1900 block of Malcolm Avenue in Newport, phone number 870-523-5822. Final segment of Remember When with Jan Jackson Maris, and I hope you folks enjoy the program. And of course, we play the program on Facebook and on cable15tv.com, and also on YouTube at Newport Cable 15 TV. Jan, a wonderful, wonderful life that you've had here. I did want to mention a couple of things that you had mentioned to me. Music lessons, dance lessons. Tell me about that, because I think you just forget about those things, and then you reminded me.
Well, you know, I came home from the babysitter at Wanda Jackson's, and of course her two daughters knew how to play the piano, and they instructed me on how to play I Dropped My Dolly in the Dirt. And I went home, and my daddy immediately thought I was a prodigy because I could play I Dropped My Dolly in the Dirt. And he called Mrs. Bingle, who I adored. Yeah. And so they started taking me down to Miss Bingle's once a week for piano lessons. I wasn't always the best practicer, but she would sit there, and she was so patient. But I can remember entering that house, and it was always a little bit, it wasn't a real bright house.
Right.
It was always just a little bit dark. But when you looked up, there were frames of Indian arrowheads and Indian artifacts around all the rooms for as far as your eye could see.
Yeah.
And every bookshelf, it seemed in my mind's eye as a child, was filled with National Geographic books. Yeah. And you knew that between she and Judge Bingle, they had probably read every word
imaginable, absolutely,
of every one, because they were both just so smart, but they were also so kind and so gentle. And I know Miss Bingle, she would get aggravated at me because I wanted to grow my hair out. So she'd take a rubber band and put it right here like a unicorn on top of my head. So I could see the book. She'd say, "Oh, I know you're playing this way because you can't see the book." And I'm like, "No, probably because I haven't practiced." But at any rate, taking piano from Miss Bingle was one of my highlights of my life.
Wow.
And I loved her, and I loved Judge Bingle, and I think they're two of those people that you take for granted knowing.
Absolutely, absolutely. Lots of good folks you have met, been influential to you down through the years. And before we close, I just want you to talk a little bit about our veterans and you know, a few other things right here before we close. Things that are dear to your heart.
I was in a meeting yesterday or day before, and we were talking about our veterans in Newport and the
Right.
men, and just the men who were sitting around this table were talking about Mr. Mullins, Wardell Pennington,
Absolutely.
Theo Herring, and Theo, actually his son-in-law was here, and he talked about Mr. Theo being shot down twice
Wow.
in enemy territory, and we talked about the years Mr. Mullins spent as a
Concentration
POW,
camp, yeah.
and my dad, and my dad was in the liberation of Dachau,
Right.
and just veteran after veteran that have done so much, and they came back here and they lived their quiet and still lives, and you didn't really realize that they were heroes, but they were.
Didn't act like heroes, never act like
No.
heroes.
No, they
My dad
raised
was in
their
World War
family.
II,
They
yeah.
worked hard. Mr. Black, you
Yeah.
know, I mean, Rhett's dad built bombers in England.
Yeah.
Newport has birthed and lived some fabulous, above what you can imagine people.
We have that.
Really good, so much talent, so much raw talent, whether they went off and made their talent,
Right.
you know, like the Nance is so talented in the music, and the Sonny Burgess.
Sonny Burgess.
I mean, and he's still here with us, thank goodness. But so much talent has come out of Newport, Arkansas, and we have a heritage to be proud of. We really do.
I think one thing that most all of us forget when you talk about those people that served our country, they weren't 30 years old when they went. They weren't 35 years old when they went. They were kids.
They were kids.
17, 18, 19-year-old kids
They were.
at that time.
They sure
And-
were.
and-
And we had a lot of them who served in Vietnam
Absolutely, we have.
and Korea.
In all the
And-
wars, all the way,
in all the
yeah,
wars.
absolutely, in what's going on, and you know, I know you want to talk a little bit about Brussels before we some final thoughts.
You know, I just think that we ought to be thankful to God for all of the good men who have fought for our freedom, and especially the ones who are fighting the fight of terror,
Right.
because it's not an enemy you can see.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's just evil, and I hope that we all remember to keep the families who have been affected by the Brussels tragedy in our prayers, and also our soldiers who are fighting against us.
Yeah.
Against that.
Against that, yeah.
Against ISIS.
Yeah, it's not
and-
like
and
you're
that.
out in the field, I'm out in the field, we're going to try to do something, or you're over there and you don't. Yeah,
No.
that's a good point.
No.
I've enjoyed it, my friend. I've
too.
enjoyed it. You know,
There's
you
no
were-
two people who love Newport anymore.
Oh no,
than
you're
do.
right. You're
There's
absolutely
sure a
right.
crowd that loves it just as much. But
Absolutely, absolutely. And your memory of some of the great things in our generation, and you know, this show has been where we talk to a lot of folks who have been retired for several years, and then I've run a couple of programs. But I knew yours was an interesting story. I knew yours was a heartfelt, and we always talk about the funeral home, and we
Yes.
always talk about the service here, but just the things to remember, and maybe some of you folks will remember what we've talked about on the program. It's been a pleasure.
you too, David. Thank
Jan
you.
Jackson Maris, remember when? Thanks for watching, folks.